Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our public meeting here in Stowmarket. This is the second of our public meeting. We had one last week up in Suffolk. So delighted to be here after a gap of 3 years due to the pandemic. And I want to say straight away, thank you very much for coming. There's nothing like having a meeting face to face like this and hearing direct from you thoughts, compliments, suggestions, candid criticisms, whatever it happens to be, doesn't really matter. I'll just make some introductions. For those of you who don't know, I'm sorry about the picture on the way, there's only one of me, I promise you. I'm Tim, the Police Commissioner for Suffolk. I've been very privileged to have been in this post, believe it or not, for 10 years next month. That's why I haven't got much hair left, but there we go. I'll just make some introductions. So our Temporary Chief Constable at the moment on my left, Rachel Keaton. Then we have the Area Chief Superintendent, Janine Ratting. Acting Inspector, John Murray. Sergeant Steve Wright, who I think oversees all the community engagement officers. Community speed watch, anything to do with speed is all his fault, of course. So we'll make that clear. Nothing whatever to do with that. And then lastly, but by no means least on my right here, Stephen Henriksen, who is our local community engagement officer. So there'll just be a few minutes of introductions and a very, very short briefing before it's over to you for questions. On your chairs you will have a leaflet which just explains about the budget this year, just over £161 million of your money. Around half of it comes from your council tax, just over. I'm afraid one of the main responsibilities of the Police Commissioner is setting the level of your council tax. I have to say it hasn't gone up every year in the last 10 years, but the last 2 or 3 there have been big increases. But what I hope you do understand is there has been considerable benefit from the extra council tax money, various new initiatives. There's the Kestrel team which deals with local neighbourhood crime. You may have seen some of the TV footage of the Sentinel teams that go after high harm criminals. A lot more, for example, on digital forensics. So I won't go through the whole list. We're in the middle of, I suppose, 2/3 of the way through the National Operation Uplift Programme. That's the increase in Suffolk of over 170 officers in 3 years. This year we're getting 72 extra funded by the Home Office. So overall, ladies and gentlemen, by the time we get to end of March next year, we will have well over 1,400 full-time officers in Suffolk. And I promise you, no fiddling about with statistics or anything like that. That is way more than we had 10 years ago when we had somewhere around about 1,150, 1,170. We do have less PCSOs, we still have about 50, but overall, a major recruitment programme really will make a difference, not just for visibility, but also dealing with the huge change in the pattern of crime. I would ask everybody here to understand the changes, even in the last 10 years, have been quite dramatic. The level of online crime, fraud, what these guys call in the business hidden harm, domestic abuse, sexual offences, things that perhaps didn't register to the same extent that they do now, going back 10 years. Huge extra demand, and of course some of these crimes are not going to be dealt with just with uniformed officers, so please understand that. Looking after safeguarding children, those who are at risk and so on. The list is endless, never mind extra demand from other parts of the public sector, for example things like mental health and so on, which need to be dealt with of course, but are not the primary responsibility of the Constabulary. So the purpose of tonight is to hear from you with questions and so on. We'll come to that in a minute. I'll compare it, so when you do ask a question, please just stand up and speak nice and loudly, and then the relevant officer or officers, or a combination of us, will answer them. So I'll just hand over to Rachel if you want to say anything, and then to the others. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to pass over actually, because I'm sure you want to hear rather from the Chief Constable, more from the local commander. So Janine will give you a bit of an update. Just by way of introduction to Janine and the rest of the police officers here this evening, we do tend to slip into some acronyms, some language that isn't always commonly understood. Please, by all means, wave at me, make grimaces at me, flag it to me. If you don't understand, there's only a few of us here. We can make sure that we get that explanation across to you, and I promise we will try our very best not to talk about CEOs, what else have we got, SNTs, NRTs, and all of the other alphabet of acronyms that we have. So with no further ado, I'll hand you over to Janine, and she can talk a little bit about the area in Stowmarket and around. Thank you.
Thank you, Mum. I feel under pressure now because I feel like I'm about to say a load of acronyms that I apologise straight away. I'll just do a bit of a further introduction myself about how long I've been in Suffolk. I've only been in Suffolk short of 2 years after transferring from I won't mention it because I get fined, but a larger London force. And actually, one of the things I love about Suffolk actually is how nice it's split because of community engagement, and it's so nice to see so many of you here today and to hear more about what you want us to do locally. So thank you for your attendance tonight. I've already said I was talking to a couple of people in the audience tonight. If I was to choose anyone in the West, because I cover all the West, Bury, St Edmunds, Sudbury, Haverhill, I'd probably choose Stowmarket, because actually when I look at my statistics, and it's in a relatively good place. I'll just cover a few bits, and I'm sure my officers will correct me if I get any of the technicalities wrong on it. In Suffolk, there has been, if you looked at crime statistics, it will show an increase, but actually the numbers are so low that you need to look at the numbers to understand that actually they're probably not showing as it would, you know, actually numbers-wise. Also, you need to remember we're coming out of a pandemic, so I think if you look nationally, everyone's showing slight increases. That's nothing that we're too concerned about. We have had reports of antisocial behaviour, predominantly in the town centre at Needham Market and Elmswell. The team are very quick to respond to that. We use problem-solving plans. We work with partners to address that. It's normally sort of youths, I would say, that we, you know, engage with, and we find the best way to deal with that is diversion tactics, and we use a lot of that in the local area. We did have a spike of theft of bikes, but I believe actually it was one person that was causing a lot of that issue, and I'm glad to say that person's been arrested, and we returned most of those bikes to the people that had lost them. Nighttime economy in Stowmarket. Obviously, a lot of the clubs have closed down now. I think we've only got Carbon left, and we do have very clear plans on how we deal with that, and have great engagement with that club through both our local team and the licensing team. We do a lot of work with them. The office has been doing a lot of work with schools. It's really important we get into our youths early and make sure that they're not being swayed into lives of crime or even antisocial behaviour, that low level beginning stuff. So we do a lot of work with schools. And the other thing we've really been focusing on is working with some of the vulnerable people in our communities. We do have people who take advantage of people who have got other needs. So the team quite regularly visit people who are vulnerable to make sure they're not being taken advantage of, to make sure their addresses are not being used for criminal purposes, and that is something that the team quite regularly engage in. Other than that, there's no sort of real issues at the moment that are being drawn to attention, but obviously I'm hoping tonight, if there are any, you will hear about them from yourselves, and then we can make plans to address them.
Thanks. I forgot to introduce my two other colleagues, Sarah at the back there, and Sandra Graffam there. And Sarah's currently going to take all the notes and questions, because we do need to hear what they are, and we will take them back and assimilate them. That's a long word, because it does help us with moving plans forward for the future. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're all here ready. So, who would like to ask the first question or make a first comment? Please don't be shy. There we are. Please, sir, would you like to, do you mind standing up? Thank you.
Evening, everybody. My name is John Sweet. I represent the Devon Parish Council. Just a few things I'd like to ask. Does 20 miles an hour work through a village? That's for you, sir, isn't it?
Well,
don't stand up, sir.
no, it's fine. It's important that everyone can hear what I'm saying. So, 20 mile an hour, there are two different sorts of 20s. There's a 20 limit and a 20 zone.
Right.
So if I explain, a 20 zone has signs at the start and finish of the area and has traffic calming measures in between that should force a vehicle to slow down to 20 miles an hour. Generally, they don't have what we call a traffic regulation order behind it, which gives us the powers to enforce it, because it should be self-enforcing, so it should be designed out. There's a 20 mile an hour limit where there's a repeater signs throughout the area. We can enforce those, but we do so on the basis of demand, priority, and on statistics based around accidents and danger to the public.
We recently had a spate of, say, Eastern European guys turning up at our fishing lake and pinching fish. I don't suppose there's a great deal you can do about it. We get a lot of messages come up on Facebook saying they're up there again, but who's going to go up? Well, we don't see ourselves going up and sorting it out, because it's who's going to go? How many do you need to? and
Right.
sort these people out.
So I'll just repeat that in case anybody didn't hear. This is about poaching of fish from lakes and so on. Clearly that is an offence. They're not their fish to take away. What would you think is the best thing to do? To report it in?
Yeah,
John?
I mean, not being made aware of it, it's the locality inspector in Suffolk. However, if it's being reported, then we will look to deal with it and look to put measures in place to obviously stamp it out. We wouldn't expect a member of the public to approach these chaps if you feel as if you're threatened by them in any way. I'll just encourage anyone to report anything like that.
Brilliant.
I'll just say back to that, obviously we have the rural and wildlife team, and we do have a dedicated officer on the west of that, so we'll make sure they're aware of that. I have just authorised payment for some more signage, because actually sometimes people use the defence of they didn't know they were not allowed, etc. So we're working with some of the fisheries at the moment to provide them some signage so that actually when we
one
do...
sign up as you approach the lake,
Yeah.
but there isn't one on the other side where they park.
Yeah.
So maybe
We can take your details afterwards,
Yeah,
and we can
brilliant,
make sure that
thanks.
we'll pass that to the rural team, because they have just, I know it's something they are looking at the moment,
Right.
and hopefully you'll be the ones where we can give some extra
Thanks very much
signage to,
indeed.
because it makes it easier then for us to do something about it, because they don't have the defence of they didn't know.
Right. The only other thing we've had is some drug-related problems in Henry Street recently. The dealer up there, so
Okay, again,
just to let you know.
yeah, if you report it, it's something I'm very, very much keen to stamp out. It's one of my sort of priorities within Mid-Suffolk in relation to, 'cause it has got a lot of links to antisocial behaviour and other criminality, so I'm very keen to stamp that out. So again, if you report that in, sometimes we have to build an intelligence picture before we can actually take enforcement, so it can take a period of time before we can address it, but I'm very keen to stamp that out. So again, if you report it, then I'm definitely
Thanks for your time.
No problem. Thank you.
And on the drug side, ladies and gentlemen, it's really important that we take a very, very robust view on that. It leads to all sorts of problems. I've seen personally too much damage to individuals, families, whole communities, and that is something that we are really, really doing a huge amount on. And I have to say the Constabulary had an excellent track record during the last year of arrests for drugs, but I absolutely get that it isn't enough. There is so much more to do. And some of you may not be aware, but there is a large sum of money coming into Suffolk from the Home Office later this year on the 10-year programme Armed to Hope. And I'm really hoping, no pun intended, that this will at least start to help those recover from addiction and do a lot more to educate the young people of what can happen, the damage it can have to career prospects and so on, really raise the profile. But I can assure you a lot of your hard-earned taxpayers' pound notes going into council tax, there is a lot that's been done on that, and that's one of the reasons we have the new teams here throughout Suffolk. So it's a really, really important issue. Thank you for raising it. So who would like to go next? Over there, thank you.
Hi, I'm Keith Scarf, one of the local councillors, county, district and town. One of your priorities, Tim, is improvements to the 111 service. Obviously that is behind a lot of the precept increase. Can you give us an update on where you're at the moment with that and how that's going to progress, how we're going to see the difference?
Yeah, thanks for raising that very much. So there's a £1.4 million investment. That is nearly all of the extra council tax money this year is going into improving the performance of the 101 number, in particular in the control room. That means we are getting on for halfway through this investment programme. It is on schedule. We've got our police and crime panel. They're people who hold me to account tomorrow, or they will be wanting an update. So we're employing an extra 27 operators within the control room. It's a major step change, and 4 extra police officers as well. So it's all on schedule. We had it, I think, Rachel, at our last accountability meeting, where the acting deputy chief constable gave an update and assured me everything is on track. And you will find by the end of this year, you should see a step change in performance. Clearly there's a little bit of time needed to train operators and so on, but that's a great example of where we've listened to people a lot. We can't do everything at once. We are all, everybody, every single one of us up here knows full well the need to improve the service. And very pleasing at the last inspector's report, the Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services, they recognised that this investment is already there, and that was the only area of what was a very good report otherwise, where they said that there was some improvement required, but recognised that plans were already well advanced. And in actual fact, with some of the technology that started last year, do you want to add anything to that, Rachel?
I will, thank you, and thank you for the question, because cautious. This is a big transformation piece of work, recognising that a number of people have had issues dialing 101. So you've heard about the financial investment and the number of people that are going in additionally into the control room to answer calls. So alongside that, there's some new technology that is being introduced as well. So you may know from going onto other websites and so on, trying to contact other organisations, the live chat system, so a little box pops up and you end up talking to effectively somebody who's answering the questions online. Now that will be another facility, so that wouldn't be appropriate for everybody, but some people will use that, and we've carried out trials on live chat. It's gone down very, very successfully. And we will be rolling that out. In fact, we are doing that at this moment, this month. We're rolling that out further as well. So what that does is takes away a certain amount of demand on the telephone lines, which frees it up for other people who feel more comfortable actually talking to a real person. Alongside the additional 27 people that the Commissioner's talked about, we have additional supervision, so that obviously new people coming in need that direction and supervision. There's more police sergeants are being put into the team who will carry out an assessment according to calls, so that we can prioritise those ones which are more urgent and those ones that perhaps are less urgent. And then alongside all of this is a training programme as well to bring up the skills of everybody that's working in the team. So it's a complete package of transformational activity in the control room, and going back to the roots of your question, you should see a marked improvement early next year.
Good. So the thing also, ladies and gentlemen, if you see something, as we heard it earlier, please do report it. And if you don't get through, you've got Stefan here, Community Engagement Officer. You're a source of contact as well as everybody else. It's absolutely crucial that we do get things reported, even if sometimes it might take a little longer than we would hope. So thank you for raising it. Who would like to go next? At the back there, the gentleman, then the lady.
Yeah, I'd just like to take on the point here. You're putting in a new system. What is the percentage increase you're seeing on 101 calls year on year? Because you put this new system in, but it's probably going to get flooded within about 3 years. I was talking to someone in, I think it was Scotland, and they're using a far more advanced AI system where it actually asks the caller questions before it goes into an actual operator, because quite a lot of the time you don't get the information that you need in a certain way from the person reporting the problem. Is there any plans to do that?
So that's about using better technology.
Certainly. I'll jump up for that one. So absolutely, AI is something that police service is exploring across very different parts and processes of the organisation, and it does have a place that we need to have a look at, particularly in the control room. At the moment, the live chat is going to be our first opportunity to see how we can use the technology differently. What I would say is that we use a system within the control room called Thrive, which looks at the threat, harm and risk of calls coming in. So there is a prioritisation that helps us manage our demand into the control room. So those that are of the utmost priority will go immediately through to a response, and then others that are of a lesser priority will have to wait. So there are a number of systems in place that do carry that out. Your point about a new system becoming overwhelmed is something that I'm very conscious of. And one of the challenges at the moment is that the police service is seeing an increase in our figures, largely because we're picking up calls from other agencies. And that analysis is ongoing at the moment to see how we, for example, can push some of those calls that actually require a health response back into the health system rather than overwhelming the police system. So there are a number of areas that we're looking at to manage that demand, which is increasing, but as we've said earlier, you can contact us in lots of different ways. It doesn't have to be over 101. There are email addresses for all of the Safer Neighbourhood teams that can be found via the website. You can use the live chat system now, or if you need to call, then I would suggest that if you can get hold of a phone number to call the officer directly, that would be the best way rather than going through the 101 system.
Thank you.
Good. We're going to the lady first and I'll come to you.
I'm a resident that lives in Meeting Market.
Oh, yeah.
I'm quite new to the market town. I used to live in Great Latham. And since I've been there in July, I moved, we've experienced quite a lot of antisocial behaviour. So I live in an apartment block, and the gentleman next to me also owns property there. And we back onto Crowley Park, and there's quite a lot of youths that hang about. There's a lot of drug dealing, drug taking, there's arguments, there's fighting, there's a bit of vandalism. I've put up a sign for my parking space where I park my car. I've had that kicked down. I've had the youths throw bottles at my car because I've actually approached them and told them to, please don't do that, and asked them to move on. So now I'm kind of a little bit targeted for speaking up to these youths, and it's just every night, really. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it's most nights, and the fact that we've got our parents close by allow them just to sit and be very loud and abusive to most of the residents.
We have there is a green sheltered seating area, and it's just a haven really for them because it's sheltered. Nobody uses it other than these kids, teenagers. And I would like it to see it removed because I'm pretty sure had our apartments been there before that, this wouldn't be seated so close to us. And then I also have concerns about there's a pitch being built for kids. It's like a new basketball pitch area, and it's going to have floodlights as well.
And the proximity to the
and
block
it
of
is
flats
so close to us.
It's ridiculous.
I wouldn't have bought my apartment had I known that, like I say, I come from Great Latham, so it's only a couple of villages away, but it feels like there's quite a lot of more antisocial behaviour than I've ever experienced, even though I lived in towns, and I just can't quite figure out why it's gone on, why it continues to happen, why it's...
I think the problem we want a bit more surveillance, and whether we start putting CCTV on the flat, and whether we pay for it, or whether something needs to be done now. It's causing problems for a lot of the tenants.
Well, I can absolutely understand antisocial behaviour, anxious behaviour, vandalism is intolerable, very unacceptable, shouldn't be tolerated. Obviously, the District Council has a responsibility for antisocial behaviour as well as the police. But in this particular case, I know John wants to say something. If you don't mind staying home afterwards to give a few more details, certainly take that further forward. There's no reason why you should have to put up with that at all. And I think that's
we have reported it.
Well, then we do need to take the details. Definitely follow that. So, John.
Historically, I was aware prior to me coming to the place in April, there was an issue around Crowley Park. I haven't been aware in recent weeks and months, so that is news to me. And then, like I said, Mr. Passmore said, if you pass your details, I will look at that, because I have been stamping that antisocial behaviour in different pockets. We had an issue Barrett's Lane for a period of time, and we focused our attention there. We had an issue in the market in Theobald, around that sort of area, and High Street. And when we focus that attention, we do stand that out. Obviously, what you've got to understand is it does pop up occasionally, and we will try and get on top of it. So
it's not just in the evening though. It starts sort of as soon as the kids come out from school, really. And I've even had to speak to the manager of the co-op, which has been built, because at the time when they were throwing bottles at my car, I wasn't sure whether they were targeting customers' cars as well.
yeah.
But I now feel they know where I live. They've made comments when I walk past. Oh, that's the lady that tells us off or whatever. They know where I live. I live high up. I live in the top floor one. But I shouldn't have to feel unsafe where I live.
No, you shouldn't, and I agree with that.
I shouldn't have to worry about my car, and I shouldn't have to think, oh, should I park my car where I'm allowed to park it, or should I park it somewhere further down the road, because I'm becoming, sorry, I got a bad throat.
No, that's fine.
I'm becoming a target myself for speaking up.
Yeah. Again, I'll get your details before we go. Steph is my community engagement officer. We'll see what we can do to assist you, certainly in the short term, and then come up with some sort of problem-solving plan to address the issues just highlighted.
Yeah.
Okay. It's going to come to the...
Can I just add to that? Can I just ask who else you have complained to?
I've complained to, there's a lady called Maria. It's not on, someone sent me a link, it was on chat, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was it to your district council?
Yes, it was.
Okay. I'm just going to highlight, and I'll talk to you about what
And I did have a phone
there's a thing
call.
called a community trigger, and if you've complained a certain amount of times to either us, to your district council, you can basically escalate it, and it's called a community trigger, and then it just heightens it, because what you're going through, that's unacceptable, and it'll heighten the response that we will work together with the district councils to address it. So after I can speak to you and explain a bit more about what a community trigger is, because this is the sort of thing where we should be raising on, and we
I
can do
did
that.
report it and I did receive a phone call.
Can I ask you to speak up a bit?
Yes, of course you
Can't hear
can.
you.
So I'm talking about, so when someone's
Yeah, I heard
complained,
that.
oh, did you hear my response about
No,
community
not
trigger?
really. I just think if that lady's rung in and nothing's been done, come on.
Yeah, but what I'm saying
But if
is,
you
so,
put that in a priority chain, that's well. I mean, that's a real problem.
yeah, I completely agree, and that's what I'm saying, but this will be a
Not going
partnership.
through councillors and the like, that needs to be dealt with right then.
I completely agree, which is why I'm explaining to the lady about the escalation process. Because when it gets to that stage, if she's not getting the response she needs, this will be a joint approach, problem-solving approach, not just with police, with
I know.
partners, with local businesses, and that is exactly what the community trigger is for. It's for this time when you've not had the response you should have at the moment, and we've got the community trigger. And I'll talk you through that afterwards, and I'll show you how to do it and explain a bit more about it.
But my concerns are with this new court basketball that's being built and with floodlights as well. It's going to affect.
Yeah.
Is it lighting pollution? It's too close to where I.
And this is exactly it.
I just think it's just, again, you're entertaining it, you're encouraging it to continue on later into the night by providing lights.
I completely understand your concerns. That's why we need to work with the partners, because obviously that's not something we're putting in place. They'll be putting it in place with the idea of it being a diversion, but we need to work together on that, and we will. That's what community trigger. The community trigger brings together all the key stakeholders who can solve the problem together.
I tried to add a comment
Yeah.
in the plans, but it's too late. Comments are closed or something. But I think before the lights are put up, do they have to be put up? Why? Because I think because eventually they'll probably end up being taken down because you'll have so many complaints about
Nothing's
it.
ever too late. There's things they can do. They can have turn down. They control access hours. There's things we can do through a community trigger and working together.
Because it's not just me it's affecting. It's
No, I completely
There's loads of you.
It wouldn't matter even if it was just you. You should live like that.
So we'll take the detail off. Now this gentleman's next, and then I'll come over to you.
I'd like to go back to the previous issue of the technology in 101. I think it's a Dutch police force that have an automatic answering system that actually works on press 1 for police, press 2 for the ambulance, and so you press 1 for the police. And it's, are you a victim of crime? Press 1, and you think, I've lost the bill to limit by the time we get there. This isn't going to be your new system. It's not going to be, oh, excellent. Go back to the lady's point of antisocial behaviour. Antisocial behaviour as a farmer, because kids in Devon Community Centre were antisocial behaviour. The police officers loved them, threw them off, fantastic. And all they did was relocate to one of my concrete pads. So it became my problem. And you then have to talk to them and deal with it because nobody else is going to deal with it for you. And I often feel, having been a victim of several burglaries, that I'm on my own. I don't actually report the 2 or 3 burglaries I get a year because they're under 300 or 400 quid. And by the time you even claim on your insurance, your premiums are just going up. It was our machine that they nicked for the 2019 ATM grab, smash and grab raid at the Devon Co-op. Okay, they did about £6,000 worth of damage to the machine by the time I get the higher fees and everything else. All my insurance premiums just went up, and I paid for that now. Nothing you can do about it. I put a huge security gate in, and we keep everybody out. Excellent.
Yeah.
Including you two.
Yeah. Well, you say, and I agree with what you say, and this is one of the most dispiriting things about it. And I do think there are issues like proceeds. The Crime Act seems to take forever a day. I personally think, it's a personal view, when the people are caught, they should be made to pay for it. It's inexcusable that your insurance premium or anyone else's insurance premium goes up because of things like that. And I remember that incident very well. Exactly.
Jesse Gatehouse got
and it's just
52 months.
And it is always a difficulty, and hence I think what Janine was talking about community triggers, because that should involve district council and other agencies as well, to try and come up with a solution. I think it's damnably difficult because how can I put it? In years gone by, of course, policing was different, and you can draw your own conclusions, and you know what I'm about to, or you know what I think. But unfortunately, not allowed to do that now. But it is about making sure young people have a proper purpose and occupations, and there needs to be a carrot and stick. So if there are community payback schemes, they need to be meaningful, not just a little slap on the wrist, but to realise they've done wrong. There are things that can be done, but it does take an awful lot of time. But we just have to keep on nagging away to the authorities. Why should you, or anyone else, if they have their car scratched, they didn't do it, and that can cost 500 quid to just put a scratch right? Why should your premiums have to go up because of that? And it's about behaviour in society generally, and there's a heck of a lot to do. So I don't really have a solution. I absolutely empathise with you. I don't know if you want to say any more on that, Rachel.
Thanks, I was, and thank you. I've your points resonate with me. I know the issues that you're describing. I think the position about the antisocial behaviour is really important, that it can have a criminal element, but very often it's a behavioural, dare I say it, parental or societal issue, and we need to work together with the agencies like education and youth services. So that's what the problem-solving approach aims to do. In terms of the burglaries, the points I really wanted to say, whilst I completely understand your position, we need the information in order to be able to connect burglaries with each other. So I can guarantee that somebody doing the thefts that you describe, it's not going to be their first time, and it probably won't be their last. So we link it together as intelligence and information to create a picture that then allows us to be able to take some of these criminals and put them in front of the court and let the criminal justice process do what it should do. Without that information, we can't do that. Now, I can understand that you may feel that you don't get much back from taking time to report that to us. However, if we do ever find any property, we also can't match that with the people that have lost it. So I would just implore to everybody, please do report any crime that you have, and if you have any information or intelligence, that's what we use and that's what we need in order to do our job. And I do understand the position that you find yourself in.
Because another machinist the year before tried to steal it, but the immobiliser stopped them. To get round it, they ripped all the ignition system out and left the blood on the ignition system. And I had to push Houser, but it's quite hard to get a
crime scene investigator
actually to come out. I said, you've got blood on there, you should be able to match that DNA up.
Yeah.
If it's not on your system, then you'll be able to put it on your system.
Yeah, exactly.
And I had to really push quite hard to get something.
Well, I'm sorry you had to push so hard, because
Not
that should be snapped up. But I think Steve needs to come in just
I've-
to add a bit more
Just
detail.
on that point, really, it's a plea to everyone about security marking of your property and taking suitable crime prevention measures. We want everyone to avoid being a victim of crime. So on the Suffolk Police website is an A to Z guide of all different things around crime prevention measures that you can individually take, to whether it's putting up CCTV, which I appreciate obviously has got costs, but it's also about marking your property. So as Mum said, if property goes missing and we find it, it's very difficult for us to reunite it with the owner if it hasn't been security marked. It's very simple with a UV pen of putting your postcode and your house number on it, and that's all we need to be able to link that back to you, so therefore we can bring it back to you. So please do have a look at our website, and if you ever go to any of our community engagement events where our engagement officers are doing street meets, they've always got the UV pens with them. They can property mark your bikes and give you stickers. We've got kits that we can do that with. So just a plea to you to help us to help you.
Thanks. One other point on this reporting crime is really, really important report. You want to say something?
I was only going to say, I'm actually down in the town this Saturday from about 9 to 1, so if you want UV pens or anything like that, that's all. We'll just want to sleep on
That's something. So that's in Devon.
No, this would be in Suffolk.
Yeah, don't want to get confused. Yeah. Okay, but reporting is important. Can we just have a
just make a comment about what that lady said, because they didn't need processes or routines or what's that. They needed an officer there to stop these people. That's straightforward, easy policing. Get down and stop it. No, we've got partner agencies, we've got block process. Too late. That they was probably needed to deal with there and then. That's on the street policing.
Yeah.
That's what we haven't got.
Well, There's an awful lot of other things, and if we had...
No, that's
I'm just coming on to
straightforward
that
job,
because
Tim.
actually,
Get out there and
if
catch
we had more, what we do need to do is get these things reported, then we can lobby the Home Office to get a better set of stuff that we'll have.
And you're going through a routine. This is going on.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. We've already absolutely agreed. Nobody's disagreed, and we'll certainly do what we can and take the details afterwards. Lady over here, please.
Thank you. Just in the Needham Market Town Council. The Town Council is very aware of the problems in the town. And in fact, there has been CCTV film passed to the police about some of the vandalism. And there are people in the town who seem to know who these people are. I don't. If I could go back to Crowley Park. Crowley Park is owned by the Town Council. It is the one recreation area in our little town. It provides the bowls club, the boxing club, football for the youngsters, cricket, basketball court, children's play areas, and they've been there for many, many years. I can assure the lady and the gentleman at the back that there will be no lighting on the multi-games area. It will not be lit. We can't prevent the youngsters going into the park. We used to lock it up, and then we were advised by the police that if there were problems in the park and it was locked, you couldn't go in there. So that's why it's no longer locked. But we do have to provide play areas for our youngsters, and that is what we do at Crowley Park. We don't have anywhere else.
No. Okay, well, thanks for that. Just so in case people didn't hear, it is about providing facilities and so on. And I do understand youngsters have got to go somewhere, but this is where John and the others take the details and definitely see what can be done.
Could I just ask on
that? Do you mind just standing up? Is that all right?
Yeah. I just wonder if your office has actually talked to the Mix, because the Mix have youth people out in Crowley Park on Friday evenings, and anyone who lives in Needham will see the work that's going on in the pavilion there, and there will be a small cafe for the youngsters and what have you. So that park is will have the Mix there quite often for the young people to be entertained, looked after. I mean, our young people are really important, and although we have some vandalism and some antisocial behaviour, the majority of our young people are just great kids.
Yeah. We've been very happy to support the Mix with a grant.
Yeah.
I'm coming to see them fairly soon, actually. In Needham Market, so we'll look at all that.
If that's all right,
yeah.
If you don't mind. We do have links in with the Mix.
Yeah.
We're doing a lot of work with them to engage with young people. They're doing some great things there.
Yeah.
And I know this is quite a new thing, isn't it, for Needham Markets. I have linked in with Sam, who's the project director, and there are plans to actually join them. The thought was that perhaps they needed to form some relationships first before we sort of go along there and do our bit as well. But there are certainly measures in place for that to happen as well, and go out on Friday nights, things like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Stephen. Next time, we'll make sure I step there. Not like Commissioner, you're rather large, but there.
Trevor Gibbons from Needham Market. I'm actually chairman of Needham Market Neighbourhood Watch, and crime in Needham Market really haven't increased relative to the population over the years. Now, Needham Market 10 years ago, there was about 5,000 residents. It's getting towards 10,000 now. The mayor will tell you that it is. If you take a rolling average from the last census, it's getting towards that. Anyhow, the point I was going to say is there's always been vandalism, and especially up near where the new co-op is. There used to be a car park there, and I always used to talk to the PCSO, Mike Brown, when he was about, because you used to have boy races up there, and you're always going to get teenagers congregate around that area, unfortunately. But I've been forever saying in my monthly report in the Needham Market newsletter
that we need to report everything that goes on to the police. And we put the police number in there. We have to report to Crime Stoppers if they don't want to report to the police, because you can get an immediate response to that. They don't ask you your name or anything, they just take your information, and I assume they pass it on to the police. But can I also say that Stefan is it's exceptional, really, in the response that we get from him. As far as Neighbourhood Watch is concerned, if I've got a meeting, he'll always attend. If I've got an event, he'll bring his car and he'll put next to our marquee. And so I'm really pleased about that. On the question of speed watch, it's Sergeant Wright, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. I think it's improved tremendously in the last 3 years. When we first started in 2016, it was all sorts of reports we had to put in, and now it's operated by Julie in Norfolk. Our reports are put in, we get a response straight away, and she tells us if we get 15 people doing this. I had 12 volunteers at one time, but they left during, I'm down to 4 now, and the reason was because if we put 15 in an hour and put the report in, half of those wouldn't get a letter because they were out of the area, the number plate didn't tally up, they said they weren't in the area, but now she can check up by your cameras all over the place, and it makes such a lot of difference. So congratulations on that, and the new type of camera also is brilliant.
Thank you.
Oh yes, can I just add another thing? And I'm sure the Lady Mayor will have something to say about this. For about 2 years now, we've been trying to get speed awareness cameras in, or SID as they call it, into Stowmarket, and we're told that, yes, I'm sure you're going to say what I'm going to say, that Mid-Suffolk District Council, the Town Council, Suffolk County Council and Highways have agreed that they are going to put them in Stowmarket. But they agreed that 6 months ago, and we're still waiting for Highways. And during that time, I understand a new camera has become available that actually takes the number of the number plate and sends it straight to police headquarters. Is that true?
Not as such. You may be referring to the Suffolk County Council ANPR project. That is basically Suffolk County Council have purchased 10 ANPR cameras. So ANPR is automatic number plate recognition. So it reads the number plate of the vehicle. That's recorded along with the speed. There are 10 of those cameras, and they are going to be rotated across all the villages and towns around the county that have registered for that. That project is currently under trial with Suffolk County Council to understand how that impacts on behaviour of drivers. The details from the camera are sent to us, and we process those in the police, and we send out the letters, very similar to Community Speedwatch. So we wait and see how that pans out. So I don't know whether you're registered on the scheme with Suffolk County Council or not.
I'd be interested to know that, and I'd be interested if you have any sway with Highways too, because we've waited a long time for these speed counts.
To be fair, everyone has, and there has been about a year's delay.
And there's 60 motorists an hour coming into Stowmarket that travel over 35 miles an hour.
Yeah, and the delay has been really that Suffolk County Council embarked on the project without understanding the technicalities of what they were asking in the first place, unfortunately. So it's taken a while to iron that all out. It is now live, it is now operating, and the cameras are being put in a certain set of trial locations rather than just putting them everywhere, so they can test that, and they're getting the data from us at the same time to understand what our enforcement is impacting on their results as well, so we can see the whole picture. It's a 3-month trial, so at the end of that period it should start to roll out amongst every town and village that's registered for it. In relation to the SIDS devices, there are a collection of devices, probably 150, 200 devices available on the market for towns and parish councils to purchase. We have no influence on that, and we don't provide advice around it. The purpose of a SID, which is a speed identification device, is to remind the driver there and then with a flashing sign, either a smiley face or a number, to say they're over the limit or they're under the limit or driving at it. And that does have a real impact. It's really important, but we do rely on the town and parish councils to provide those, and they're nothing to do with us. They're purely council owned. But there's nothing that would feed directly to us and us to then deal with that as an enforcement element.
And your key to those cameras is to get hold of your county councillor and ask them to put it on the list to get them to do it like that as well.
I can provide the email address you need to contact the team afterwards.
Could I just say that there are 3 due to be put into Needham Market. We're waiting for county to do them. There are 1 on Barking Road, 1 on Stowmarket Road, 1 on Ipswich Road. So just watch this space.
So those are all the ones, the A and P. Gentleman at the back.
Good evening. My name is Hutton. I'm just a private citizen. My question is going to be for the Chief Constable, if I may. It's going to be slightly broader than the sort of subjects we've had. So once you've heard the question, if you feel it's not parochial enough for this forum, I'll accept that we can deal with it separately. But I think it's relevant. First, I'll start with a compliment for Suffolk Constabulary. I've noticed over the last 3 years, particularly during the COVID period, the reputation of the police force, I think, has been diluted, reduced. There's been scandals over flying drones over dog walkers in Derbyshire, or counting items in someone's trolley in Northampton or whatever. And even more lately, you've got situations of, no one attends a burglary, or the chief constables have now decided, well, we're going to attend burglaries. But meanwhile, they're dancing the Macarena at Pride events, or they're arresting veterans in Hampshire for retweeting the picture. Meanwhile, nothing from Suffolk. So either it's the quirk of the county, or it's credit to the leadership that you have not been embroiled in those sorts of issues. So as a citizen, I commend you on that, because I think that's important that you seem to be, anyway, focusing on policing. Now the question I have, there is a question, I thank everyone for the patience. It comes in 3 parts. Is offending someone, in your opinion, and of the constabulary, is offending someone an offence? What the hell is a hate crime? And what are your views on that ridiculous thing known as a non-hate or a non-crime hate incident? I'd be very interested to hear your opinion, but I accept this might not be the forum. If people are interested as well, I'm happy to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you. While Rachel just thinks about that, on the burglary side, funny enough, this came up at the previous meeting, and we discussed it recently, our accountability. The track record in Suffolk for residential burglaries, the reason it wasn't mentioned is because nearly all of them are actually attended. These are residential burglaries. The solve rate, and I checked the figures for an interview yesterday, the latest set we have, there were 737 residential burglaries in the last year in Suffolk. Those are the figures, I think, in May or June. And the solve rate was 737. Yeah, I think that's right. Don't hold me to that precisely, but I seem to remember that. And the solve rate was virtually 17%. Now, it doesn't sound very high, but it is way in excess of nearly every other force. So, without wishing to blow smoke or be big-headed about it, yes, it is down to leadership, it is down to the consumer.
And credit to them, because I think when I read in the news that it's taken a group of chief constables to get together and say, we're going to attend every burglary, I was thinking, well, excuse my language, no shit, Sherlock, isn't that supposed to be what you're supposed to do?
We didn't need all that in Suffolk because these guys are already doing it. We're recruiting a lot more detectives, so hopefully that will increase. Now, the next question of all those different dimensions, Rachel, an interesting answer.
Please, we've been burgled, it was nasty.
Yes.
But what made the difference was victim support.
Yes.
I don't know if you
know. No, I don't have any particular issue.
And we did have officers who attend.
Yes.
Good.
It upset us for months. And to have your home totally destroyed isn't much. I couldn't even sleep in our house,
Yeah.
I'm okay now, I'm not crying anymore, but
It is horrendous. It's a violent crime, it's traumatic, and it's very, very different from many other crimes. So that is the reason why domestic burglaries on people's homes have always been investigated and been visited by the police. You'll also notice that I didn't make a loud statement about it, that we've always done it. In Suffolk, we do it well, we continue to do it well, and a lot of the national noise, for very good reason, needs to just carry on. And as long as we're delivering a good service and our staff know what's expected of them, then the quality is there for the people that need it, who are the victims and the communities that we serve.
The difficulty is not knowing who it was, because sometimes it can't be solved.
Sometimes it can't be solved, but as many victims tell us, then actually knowing that there's a service and that they feel safe and that there's somebody has paid attention to what's happened to them and made them feel better can be closure in itself.
Closure also comes with spending quite a lot of money on CCTV, alarms,
Yes.
you know, and things to protect yourself further. So I mean, I'm not complaining, but we bear the cost of not only burglary but also protection.
And the designing out crime officers will come and visit and give advice about that. I don't know whether you actually had
Ring doorbell.
Yeah, exactly. Ring doorbell has been one of the most successful initiatives across Suffolk, and I think we certainly were one of the first. And I'd like to stand here and say that we were the first police force, but we were certainly one of the first that actually encouraged that ring doorbell initiative, and now of course it's nationwide. So back to your question or your point, Suffolk tend to do things really well. We don't actually say very much about it a lot of the time, but when we have a good initiative like ring doorbell, we go out there and we spread it amongst other police forces. They tend to do a lot of noise and shouting about it, but we just get on with delivering a good service. So thank you for the feedback, first of all.
Right.
But I will get on to the point about the non-crime hate incidents, which I think is your point that you're asking about.
And whether it's an offence to offend someone.
So I am actually going to refer it to the people who are more technically skilled than I am. I run a big organisation, but they actually deal with those incidents on a day-to-day basis. So I don't know if who wants to take this particular tricky legal, let's all stand and stick. Yes, I know when I can stand up and talk about things
But you
like...
say that, and I accept that, but after all, the policy will come from you.
Absolutely, but as you're about to hear, it's national guidance. So actually, when we talk about something like that, it isn't my entire decision. How we deliver it, and the service that we deliver, and the leadership from my colleagues here, is how we deliver it. But Steve will give you a bit more technical detail.
Okay.
Thank you.
There may be various elements to it, and I may not be able to give you a definitive answer, but Section 5 of the Public Order Act says that if a person uses threatening, insulting, or abusive language or behaviour that causes a person harassment, alarm and distress, then they are committing a crime. So that's the basics of it in law.
Did you see the case of the two Essex police women in, I think it was in Clacton, who got someone to take a Russian flag down because one person had taken offence? And it was in a whole stream of flags, and the Russian flag was in there, and they took offence. And I'm like, what does this country come to when one person is offended, someone else is then arrested, which is what happened in that case. They actually arrested, I think it's all on...
Well, again, Section 4A of the Public Order Act refers to any visible sign. So if a person feels that they're offended, I'm not saying that they're right or wrong, because I don't know the full circumstances of it. But it may constitute that. And so it's a very fine line for us to have to tread as to freedom of speech and what is, whether we're interfering with people's right to protest or whatever it may be, versus what constitutes a crime. So I probably can't give you a definitive thing.
No, that's
but
right.
It's the Public Order Act is the piece of legislation that would...
It's coming back to that first point, which is the culture of the constabulary. And I don't want to dominate too long. It sounds like the culture. I would like to think that in Suffolk, the policemen or the policewomen on the beat wouldn't have acted the way those two young ladies acted in Clacton. And maybe that's the culture of Essex Police, which does, I'm an Essex boy, does appear on YouTube and crime bodge rather more than you get in Suffolk.
I do object most strongly about Essex Police. They're not here to defend themselves, so therefore you should keep your comments to yourself.
Oh, please.
Okay.
Well,
I can speak from personal experience with Essex Police. They're as good as Suffolk Police, and they're doing a difficult job.
Yes.
So I don't think you should criticise them.
Thank thank you for that. All I would say, not being a warranted officer or anything like that, what I would say you will get here in Suffolk is that the police use their common sense. I know there is no law of common sense. There are pressures coming from left, right and centre, all over it, everywhere. Whichever way you look, it can be extremely difficult. And
thank you for indulging me with the question.
But that's okay, and I understand what you're both saying there. And
everything is offensive to somebody else.
Well,
I just make a comment here. I did look around to see if there was anybody of a different colour to me, but I can't find it.
No. Well, you see, and that's another issue that we have to look at, and we do look at, and it's about representing everybody. I think to summarise a lot of this, we are fortunate. Yes, there's always room for improvement, but Suffolk, compared with many other counties, is a heck of a lot safer than elsewhere. And if you take into account the number of officers we've got per head of the population, the resources we get, and I'm not just saying this because I'm standing up here with them, but I do think they do a damn good job. And we are very fortunate, but as I said, there is always room for improvement, and I really do mean that. And one of the big challenges we've got is demand from other parts of the public sector. I've said many times before, we're working very hard to get a solution. We're not a mental health service, we're not an ambulance service, we're not one to look after missing children who disappear in care. Clearly they have to be looked after, but it's the handover to these other agencies whose primary responsibility there is perhaps not quite where it should be. So we've got to have better conversation joined up so that more resources for the police are freed up, for want of a better word, to prevent crime and solve crime. We're all as one, in that aspect we all here are, but how the hell we get to that position is very difficult. But there are big issues that somehow have to be solved. You can't abandon people, that is not in your oath of office, so they do have to look after people in difficulty and vulnerability, but it's that hand-on, sitting here as a, I mustn't say PCC because that's an acronym, Police and Crime Commission, I'll get told off, you see. But it does take a huge amount of resource. We spoke about demand on 101 earlier. Well, a lot of the calls there are actually not police-related at all. Now, I don't know other organisations that have to be there as a cover all to deal with. It's not an excuse, I'm just pointing out, ladies and gentlemen, that's one of the big challenges somehow we have to overcome, and we'll do what we can to do it. Any other questions? Gentlemen there, and then up here. Well, anybody else can take on first, and then we'll come back to you, sir. Please.
Gerald Lewis from Silent.
Come a long way.
Quiet village.
Yeah.
I'm a neighbourhood watch coordinator, and we had 3 of us, and 2 of them died, and it's difficult to encourage anyone else to take the job on. I know we talk about it in Parish Council, and the Parish Council chairman has got all the new signs dated around the village. So we're failing. So I'm just wondering how we encourage other people to join Neighbourhood Watch.
Can I just add a point on that? Yeah, I've been involved with Neighbourhood Watch for 25 years, one of the first Neighbourhood Watches that started. And unfortunately, Neighbourhood Watch is virtually, we're getting no youngsters at all come into it. And Suffolk Neighbourhood Watch hasn't got a chairman and hasn't got a secretary at the moment, and I think they're probably going to be disbanded. I take all my information from the National Neighbourhood Watch now, and anybody can link into the National Neighbourhood Watch and get their information. And the problem is, everybody gets on social media nowadays and get their information from social media. It's probably nearly a year since I called my last Neighbourhood Watch meeting at Needham Market, and I've got 250 members on my computer, but I would get probably 10 people turn up if I had a meeting. And I had the police constable there, I had the banks, and 2 or 3 other representatives from various organisations, and 10 people turned up. So you don't get much encouragement really, and I've asked many times for new people to join us. So I think Neighbourhood Watch is generally fading out of the system now.
Well, that's very sorry to hear that, and I think we do have a general problem of getting people to volunteer for anything. completely different subject. I do a lot of rugby refereeing, even at my age, yeah. But before COVID, we had 42 referees on the Eastern Counties panel, and now got 21. And a lot of the people, I'm afraid, who've stopped, I wouldn't say retired, they're old enough, are a lot younger than I am. And I think this is a general problem in society. We have to try and get back, what can we do to help and support each other?
I think it's the way you contact people, you know.
Yeah.
Your emails and stuff, that's not going to attract young people. They don't use Facebook. You need to look at what media they're using and use that media to communicate.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science, but you know,
No.
you just got to go with the new stuff. You know,
Yeah.
you can't stay stuck in it all with emails and stuff like that.
No, no,
That's
no.
not where the youngsters or the middle-aged, sort of younger people anyway, that's not how they like to work. So yeah, I think people still want to do it. I just think you've got to revitalise what they're doing. Really.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice to have young people here?
Exactly.
Well, I agree, but we put it down on all sorts of...
Even on the panel. You know, to invite someone.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
That's all been recorded on film.
They're invited and from the mix or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
It's actually made a good thing of their lives, you know, and then they can feed back.
It's a good point. We do have a really active cadet base, and you know, if you think that's something we could do, we could invite some of our cadets because they share with you some of the really positive things we do with them.
We need that,
Like you
don't
said
we?
earlier, our young people are really important to us. And
We've lost our young people somewhere.
we've still got some really good ones. I think we've got some really good ones.
More about the good stuff.
We have got some brilliant.
No, it is an issue.
If you issue young people with the opportunity of having a taser, is that increase the
And they can come control your farm. But no, I think we do always have to look at new means of communicating and so on. That is important. So, yeah, come on, John.
Just in relation to Neighbourhood Watch, obviously Neighbourhood Watch is an independent organisation from the police. The engagement officers have it part of their portfolio that they have to support Neighbourhood Watch, and that's really important they do so. So if you're struggling locally, if you contact your community engagement officer, then they will quite happily promote Neighbourhood Watch in your area through our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, through Police Connect, in our Constables County magazine that goes out. We try and put it across all our forums and media, and they do articles in local papers as well. So your engagement officer is your means of putting that information out for you, and we're more than happy to support Neighbourhood Watch for you.
Give it a go. Thank you, Steve. Anyone who hasn't asked a question, I know you've got it on the roll, which is fine. Gentleman there, please.
Thank you. I'm on Police Connect, and almost day after day we get a report that something's been burgled, broken into, drilled the doors on people's vans, sheds broken into. I haven't seen anything on there that any of you caught or arrested, and that's virtually every other day something comes on there like that. Secondly, are we likely with these extra police to see some on the ground? I live up in Cedars Park. I don't know when we last saw an officer walking around. The last lot we had, apart from Stefan, was the original PCSOs used to come around regularly on a bike. They knew who and what was going on. Don't see anything like that at all now. So are we likely to see people walking around where we live? By any chance, once a week, once a fortnight? And access to this new police station, will we have access to that? You couldn't get to that other one, they used to shut the door, they'd be inside, you'd not get something to report or leave there, just sitting there, never answer it. So will we get access to this new one?
So I'll just answer the front desk we've kept open, and this came up back in 2016. The reason quite a few of the stations were not closed, it's just the front desk wasn't operating, and that's down to resources. It was all done on data, what it was, because I looked at it myself, and this was all done very carefully. If we had more resources, we took the decision, because there were so few people going to the police station, those...
But they didn't go.
No, they haven't, but let me
Come on, Tim.
Yeah, let me just finish. So they are open police stations. If you need to make an appointment with someone there, then that's fine. Okay, so that can still be done. And that needs to
appointment to go down because you've seen something happen, or you want to record something, or leave something there, like a box of syringes you found.
Yeah, but I think you'll find a lot of officers are not waiting in the station to be called out, but I mean, that's an operational...
They're in there, one of them's only got to come to the door.
Well, I'll answer the question up here. So that's one side of it. What about visibility and foot patrol up in Cedars Park?
Again, I'll take your point, but in relation to burglaries and day after day and shared burglaries, that's not reflected in what's being reported to us, because I look at my performance figures.
Police connect nearly every day something broken into this has been
What, in Cedars Park or in Stowmarket or where?
No, well, I don't know, from around the area.
But where specifically are you referring to?
Well, I'm afraid you'd have to look. Connect up.
I'm just trying to understand the point you're trying to
I don't
make.
take every detail down where it is. It comes on there. It's always within about 5 miles of here.
Okay. Right. Well, I'll double check my figures, but I can assure you that the figures that I've seen in relation to burglaries, whether it be residential, shed, garage, or otherwise, on day after day. I can assure you of that, and I'll, you know,
But on this gentleman's broader point, what's your view on beat policing? Is that confined to the 1960s Dixon?
In some ways it is, because you've got to remember it depends what type of crime type you're tackling. If I've got a crime type of drugs, actually putting uniform officers there will not actually solve that. It might move it on, it might make it disappear for a while. I might put plain clothes officers there, which you won't see and you won't notice, but they're there and they do the really purposeful thing. To say how I put my resources and whether I put beat crimes, every morning I have a daily management meeting with all my inspectors from my area. The inspectors will trawl crimes every single day. So every single day we look for crime types, we look for locations that have got a spike or, you know, something going on. Monthly, we also have what's called a tactical tasking meeting, where actually an ongoing problem will be given some resource and we'll flood the area, we'll do, you know. So I haven't got enough officers to put in areas that are not showing crimes, that are not having issues like antisocial behaviour. We have to be really smart with our resources. And that doesn't mean we won't put in you know, uniform officers if that is a tactical, viable option for the crime type we're dealing with. Unfortunately, lots of research has been done on problem solve. That's why I was talking about earlier, we do a joint patrol approach, because actually uniform officers in the beat for lots of crime types is not an effective use of crime prevention. Problem solving, where you analyse the problem, look at all the reasons. When people are offending in a certain area, there's normally something about that area that is making them choose it to offend. It could be the street furniture, it could be the lighting, it could be... So you take those things away. An officer standing there will not take all those things away. So
You've answered the question, we're not going to get them, thank you. Now, will we have access to this new police station?
Sorry?
Will we be able to go down there if we want to got something which got to be handed over or speak to an officer?
It won't
will somebody come and talk to somebody?
No. Well, they will have to make an appointment on that.
The answer to your question is no, it won't have a front desk.
Okay, so we haven't got access to that.
No, that's not what I said. We won't. There will be no front desk. But as Mr. Passmore has already said, if you'd like to make an appointment, we've got various ways of contacting us, and we're trying to be smarter in relation to be able to respond, okay, to many problems.
I've got something to hand over which is illegal or whatever. So I'll ring them up and say, can I have an appointment? Yes, Tuesday week. I want to bring it down now. So nobody answer the door.
Pardon?
Nobody answer the door.
I didn't say that, but there is no front desk.
Righto. That's a bit of a letdown, really. Because
it is a shame, and if I had enough officers to do it, when you look at statistically how many visits we have in a day, for me to have an officer there for 24 hours is not an effective use of time.
To build that police station, nearly £500,000 was taken out of the community investment levy. Now that's money which has been paid by people who bought houses. Yeah? So they've actually, their money's in it and they can't use it. It's like saying to somebody, build me a shed in the garden, thank you very much, pay it. No, you can't use it. No, we should have access to that in some way. I mean, if they're in there and somebody doesn't go for nothing, why can't somebody come and answer the door?
Well, look, that community infrastructure level is £432,000. Yeah,
sorry, say that again.
£432,000 went into the project, a joint police and fire station. Okay.
Yeah, but you see, CIO, where it came from, community, but police and fire are national. Why do we have to put that money in there?
Well, where do you suppose we have to finance these?
If you hadn't got the money when you sold your other sites, you shouldn't have started on it, should you?
we put that in there. It's a far better police station, better equipped, can house more officers, and you will find that is a very good investment in mid-Suffolk. It's the only brand new facility in the whole of the county.
We've done that.
Yeah, good.
Now, priority meetings, we've started them in this town. Remember those? About every month or 6 weeks, you had what they call priority meetings, where any member of the public could go to. We held them in the council offices, and anybody could bring up anything which was affecting their area, like we've heard here. Right? And then the people shut the meeting down, and they make their priorities for the next month or so. Now, that was good to and fro-in of information. Are we going to start those again?
So, because you didn't hear, there used to be priority meetings where there would be an exchange. Now, they were attended to a greater or lesser extent. Stephen, how do you engage with communities to have things forward? I know you're out and about a lot.
Yeah, going back to things like, I'll start with, I just wanted to mention about foot patrol and stuff like that. I still do it, believe it or not, I probably need to do more. But we do still go out there, but I have to target that to where there's actually going to be a lot of people to talk to and everything else, because the days when I would cycle around Cedars Park, absolutely fantastic, I would talk to people, but not the quantities that I really want to engage with now. When I'm out there, I am talking to the community. I'm also getting a lot of the information back. So whereas we used to have priority setting meetings, they ended up, some of them weren't as well as attended as others. And I think that decision was made to stop those, because a lot of the time we can get the information from our communities other ways. Street meets, we carry out, I make myself readily available in the town centre on a regular basis, not just Stowmarket, I also go out to the villages as well and make sure that it's publicised, I'm there, if people want to talk to me, tell me things about what's going on, then we get that information fed back to us. That way, a lot of this information I'm then getting, and so are my colleagues, we're putting that back to the boss, and a lot of the priorities that we then make will be based on those sort of things. Going back to the ASB in Needham Market, it was a priority, and I believe it's in certain areas. We changed these priorities, but it was. But again, it's good to make sure that we have that information so that we can then set the priorities and target those things that specifically need targeting. But that's why we don't do the setting meetings anymore, because there are other ways to get this information back. They were, during the day, most people couldn't come to them, and that's why we do it slightly differently now. I think it's probably fair to say, Ross, yeah? I think it does work, but there will be things like your ASB in the market, which we can then pick up, and we can pick up another. And that's my job, to make sure that communities, us all, because I'm still part of the community as well, can actually speak to someone and make sure that we locally know what's going on, where it's going on. Without that information, we're sort of stuck. You know, we have to have it fed back to us.
Take away, like your fellow colleague said, take away the things, like take away the seating area, the sheltered area. You know, instead of like having piece on the beam, take those things away and don't put the floodlights up.
That will never be our decision.
I know.
You know, it's
to me, it's just, you know, saying, yeah, you can now party further on into the night now.
And we work really, really well with our partner agencies, and we do our bit with them, and that's what we want to do. What's happened here is awful, quite frankly, and that's what we will target, and we will make sure that is targeted. But that's how we do it. So the priority setting meetings, we discuss it based on all the information that we're getting coming into us. And that's working with our parish councils, that's working with the people that actually, so I'm in contact with all the parish councils, clerks, etc., to make sure that if they need to tell me something, then they know where to come without having to wait without having to report it. They will just email me, and that's exactly what happens. And I feed it back so that it does get there, and the priorities or the decisions can be made to target our resources, sort out the problems. Does that answer that?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that right?
It says you're not going to have that. I'm not going to do that.
Gentleman here.
Well, I have finished it. That meeting was well attended in Stowmarket, and a lot of information used to come back through it, which allowed the police to pick it up quickly in one place. There was a senior officer and others there, and I thought they were very good indeed, and it came back, and suddenly we just cut them out. But now you've got all these extra officers, isn't there? You say 10, how many million extra officers?
We'll be going up to over 40 at the end of this year, the financial year.
So we should see somebody.
Yeah.
So we can't. But that's not good.
Right. Okay.
I've got 3 no's to 1 yes.
Thank you. Gentleman here.
I'm a dinosaur. I'm Mick Roxdale. I live locally. I only lived in Suffolk for 16 years, but I was 28 years. I was a copper down in London. I was once told in the 1960s when I first joined, lose the streets, you lose the war. And I appreciate what you're all saying about highlighting places. What about PCSOs that I once read you were going to put on the beat? So that people can talk to them. They can go to local areas, sit down at the town centre, make themselves useful. What about special constable? What are you doing with them? That's my question.
What are you doing with PCSOs?
And special constables. That's
well,
people that could quite happily cover their various places here. Damage, rallying, meeting the public. That's what people want, and I think a lot of people in here will say that.
Yeah, we all want that, but it's about getting the balance. I'll ask Rachel to comment in a minute. But yeah, we're very pleased with the special constabulary. We've got big recruitment campaigns on
yeah, I think that,
day. Really,
I was going to volunteer, but I thought they were a bit too old.
Yeah, no, but they are very valuable resources.
Yeah, and they're the sort of people I think.
Yeah,
I mean, I thought that's what they were going to be used for.
Okay, so that's why I've got community engagement officers. I think we've got 14 now. Yeah, so that is another thing there. There was a proposal put forward to me a few years ago to get rid of all of the PCSOs, and I didn't agree with that, so we didn't. We don't have as many as we did have, as I said at the beginning, but we still have around 50. And yes, but as I said, the change in the pattern of crime is so much more now hidden away. If we had all the resources that some, for example, like the larger metropolitan forces had, we could do both. We could keep all the front desks open, but we have to live within the resources that we've got, and that's part of the real challenge. And I'm not, well, it is an excuse. I mean, it's a reality. But Rachel, would you like to just comment on that?
Yeah, I will. Thank you. Great question. Because PCSOs and special constables are very much part of our policing family, and they carry out a different function from police officers. Our police support volunteers as well, so we have a number of positions which are carried out by volunteers as supporting roles to the constabulary. So anyone that thinks that you either are interested yourselves or know anyone who would want to be either a volunteer, a police support volunteer, or indeed a special constable, we're recruiting now for special constables. Very, very welcome to join us. PCSOs, absolutely fantastic opportunity to have that face-to-face conversation. They work very, very well indeed. Unfortunately, we're just not able to have as many as we would like to have, and that's what it comes down to. But the function that both the special constables and the PCSOs carry out is additional to what we are able to deliver as police officers. Tim has touched on the point about the changing face of crime. I think the changing phrase now is if you lose the internet, you lose it. And that's what it is nowadays. So this is why we don't have young people here tonight. I can guarantee exactly what my 2 teenagers are doing at the moment. Yes, they're at home, but they're behind a screen. And that's what the teenagers will be doing. If we lose the internet, we lose the young people, we lose it to crime. And that's where a lot of our police officers have to be now, is everything, every single incident that we have, even the burglaries or the antisocial behaviour that we've talked about tonight, has a digital footprint. Everybody is using a phone, everybody is using a computer, and every crime has that digital footprint that we then have to investigate with police officers. So unfortunately, that changing nature of crime is pushing us to putting different skills into different places. But the PCSOs, the special constables, do a fantastic job. I'd love to have many more, if I could.
We would all, so that's a very good question. Anyone else who hasn't asked a question? I think we had, did you have another? To take that as the final question, we will be here afterwards to take details.
Is it possible for Devon to have a drive-by once on a Friday? Because as this gentleman quite rightly said, the youngsters hang around the village on a Friday, just maybe having somebody drive past occasionally. And the other thing I'd like to ask you about is, you were talking with this lady about something called mix.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's not. It's the mix here in Stowmarket. Right. They've got a drop-in youth centre. So they're focused a lot. They've got a cafe there and all sorts of things.
I'm just trying to
it's
find
a building.
Engaging our youngsters.
Yeah. It's a building, and they've got a massive sort of youth project there. And they've done really, really well in the past few years. They're now spreading out a bit, going over to Needham markets, and I think they've got big plans as well. They do a brilliant job, and they're sort of dropping essentially. You're talking, it's got to be a good 50 to 70 regular turning up. It's a really good number, and now they're looking at other different age groups as well to try and involve them at all different levels. It's going from strength to strength, and we're involved in a small way of going along there, getting to engage with the young people, things like that, in a more sort of relaxed surroundings. That way we get to know who they are, they get to know who
Is there a way we can find out a bit more about mix by going on the internet, strangely enough? Do they have a Facebook page or something like that?
I think they've got everything.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I've got a big booklet at home. Yeah, not at home.
It makes you feel like they do an excellent breakfast. I recommend go down on a Saturday morning, 8 o'clock, full English.
It is fantastic, and we love getting involved with it because we recently had the crucial crew where we're talking to almost every single year 6 child in mid-Suffolk, and this year we chose to talk about online stuff for obvious reasons, about security and everything else, because that is a massive thing, and they seem to be getting younger and younger, where they are speaking on the internet and everything else. So it's really good, and there is something on the internet, yes.
I'll check that out because it's something we need to do in the village to try and gather them in one place on a Friday night, because they do tend to spread out a bit and then you get raucous occasionally.
And they will probably love that actual contact to see what they can do to help us. Well, they're really good.
Brilliant. The last thing I have to ask is for the gentleman at the end there. Do you have any? Are you aware of any of these speed signs that are bulletproof? 3 months ago, one of ours got shot. Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
Well, sorry, it was a £325 to repair it, but yeah.
It was an accident.
Someone attacked the toilet.
In short, the answer is no, because we have nothing to do with the devices. So I can't tell you what's out there on the market, I'm afraid. It's just, what I would say is that we did a speeding forum with the Suffolk Association and local councils a couple of weeks ago, and Laura, who done the administration for that, took some details from someone who'd had some really great experience with SIDS. So if you make contact with SALC through your parish council, they'll be able to provide that information to you.
Great, thanks very much. Okay, good.
Okay, and just on the one on the mix, I can tell you, because we've given them a grant and to expand 2 grants. It's more than just a youth club. For those who are saying adolescents, it can give them advice on relationships, job applications, counselling for whatever you've heard about, online safety, sporting activities, cooking. It doesn't matter what it is. Somebody give them a purpose, the things that they would miss out on. And I can tell you these things. Having run a scout group for 27 years, giving them purposes like that for youngsters keeps them on the straight and narrow and stops them being a pain in the backside. Doesn't work with everybody, but if we do more for our youngsters, I'm sure that will help everybody, particularly antisocial behaviour and these things. We've got to do much more, we've got to do better as a society. And let's face it, during the pandemic, with education disrupted and all this sort of stuff, that's been very unhelpful. We are where we are. We don't have limitless resources, but we do have a big grant scheme that we do in conjunction with the Suffolk Community Foundation that's helped the mix other organisations in mid-Suffolk as well, and we are definitely there to help. But if you want any more, we can have a natter about it afterwards.
Yeah,
well, okay, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been a very vigorous conversation at times. So those who need to give detailed and further discussion afterwards, please stay behind, or stay behind if you want to anyway. But thank you very much indeed for your time, and I'd like to thank John Burns there, who's been filming it tonight. He's a district councillor from over in West Suffolk, who's travelled all the way up here to do that for us tonight, so thank you very much. And thank you to the team and everybody else. Thank you very much.